I remember the day she told me she had a problem. I had no idea it would spiral into months of confusion, miscommunication, and heartbreak. At first it was a simple message. Something happened. Can we talk? My heart raced, but not out of fear for myself. I only wanted to know she was okay. I wanted to help. Over the next few days, I tried to reach her, sending texts that I carefully worded, making sure not to pressure her, but also hoping she would trust me enough to share what had happened. Each message I sent felt like a small drop into a stormy ocean, disappearing without a trace, unanswered. My imagination ran wild. Was it something serious? Was she hurt? Was someone else involved? The more I waited, the more anxious I became. I started replaying every conversation we'd had over the past weeks, months, trying to find signs, hints, any clue that would help me understand her state of mind. I reminded myself over and over, I wasn't angry at her. I wasn't upset. My anger, if any, was aimed at the situation, at whatever had caused her pain, not at her. But when she finally responded, it wasn't relief I felt. She seemed distant, cold, almost accusing. "You're angry," she said. I paused. I wanted to scream that I wasn't, that I only wanted to help, that all I felt was concern. But words didn't come out that way. The nuances, the careful explanations I had rehearsed in my mind, fell flat. She didn't hear them. She only saw what she feared: judgment, impatience, selfishness. Days turned into a week, and each interaction was like stepping on thin ice. I wanted to ask what was going on, to understand her world, but every attempt seemed to widen the gap between us. She would reply in fragments, leaving me grasping for context, for clues, for any sense of connection. And as I read between the lines of her short messages, my mind filled the gaps with the worst possibilities. I imagined scenarios, conversations, mistakes I might have made, ways I might have failed her before I even knew the full story. In those moments, the smallest things, an unanswered text, a delayed reply, a tone in her words felt monumental. Every decision I made, every word I typed, was weighed with the fear of pushing her further away. I was trapped between wanting to act and fearing that my action would only make things worse. I wanted to reach out, to comfort, to offer solutions, but I also wanted to respect her space. And somewhere in that balance, something invisible, fragile, broke. And yet, despite all my careful calculations, despite all my intentions, despite my constant reassurance to myself that I was only concerned, that I only wanted to help, the misunderstanding was already taking root. She didn't see the care. She didn't see the worry. She only saw frustration, control, perhaps even anger. And that perception, even if it wasn't true, was enough to begin the unraveling of what we had. Asterisk, the days that followed were a blur of small, tense interactions. Every notification sound made my heart skip a beat. Was it her? Had she finally replied? Each time it wasn't her, my mind sank deeper into anxiety. I found myself analyzing every single word she had ever written. I replayed old conversations in my head, trying to decipher hidden meanings, warnings, or signs that I had overlooked. I remembered one night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, staring at my phone on the nightstand. The room was dark, but my mind was racing, imagining every possible scenario. Maybe she was upset with me for something I hadn't even realized. Maybe I had crossed some invisible boundary. Or worse, maybe she was in danger, and I was powerless to do anything. I felt helpless, my chest tight with tension, unable to sleep. I tried to write messages that would express my concern without pressuring her. "I'm here if you need me," I typed over and over. But each time I deleted it, worried that the words would come across as desperate or intrusive. I couldn't stop myself from imagining her reading it and misinterpreting my intentions. What if she thought I was angry? What if she thought I was being controlling? The uncertainty gnawed at me, and then she responded, but it wasn't the relief I had hoped for. A short, clipped message, almost cold. "I'm fine. Don't worry about it." That tiny sentence made my stomach drop. The words were simple, neutral even, but the tone I couldn't tell. The tone seemed accusing. Was she frustrated with me? Disappointed? Angry? I tried to pass it, but it only led to more confusion. Every word I wrote back seemed inadequate, and I began to feel that whatever I did, it would be wrong. Over the next week, our communication became fragmented. She would reply late, sometimes hours after I sent a message. Sometimes she wouldn't reply at all. I tried to give her space, telling myself she had her reasons, that she needed time. But the silence was deafening. It made every unanswered message feel like a tiny judgment, a silent accusation of my impatience, of my failure to understand. I became obsessed with context, with interpreting the meaning behind her words, the timing of her replies, the punctuation she used, a period at the end of a sentence, a single emoji, a lack of an exclamation mark. They all felt loaded with meaning. I was trapped in an endless cycle of speculation, trying to decode every possible message, reading too much into too little, desperate to understand her state of mind without actually having the full story. Then came the moment that escalated everything. She sent me a message. "Why are you angry at me?" My chest tightened. I had been trying so hard to communicate that I wasn't angry at her, but at the situation, at the person who had caused her pain. I tried to respond carefully, explaining my intentions, my worry, my concern. But the words came out wrong, or at least, she interpreted them wrong. "I'm not angry at you," I typed. "I'm angry at what happened, at the person who hurt you. I just want to help. I don't know how else to make sure you're okay." Her reply was short, almost accusatory. "You only think about yourself. You don't care about me." I reread it, disbelief and shock washing over me. That couldn't be right. I cared. I had spent sleepless nights worrying, crafting careful messages, pacing the apartment, imagining the worst, hoping the best. And now, in a single line, she had reduced my concern to selfishness. I tried again. I explained everything the way I had rehearsed it in my mind countless times. But the responses remained curt, distant. Each time I attempted clarity, it only widened the emotional gap between us. I started to feel frustration, not at her, but at the situation. And yet, I knew any hint of that frustration could be misread as anger at her. Every word, every pause, every carefully measured phrase seemed to betray me at this point. Weeks had passed since the incident. We were speaking, but not really communicating. There was a wall between us, invisible yet impenetrable. I wanted to reach her, to be there for her, to reassure her that I was on her side, that I cared. But my efforts seemed futile. She had built a fortress of silence, and I was left outside, knocking, calling, hoping for even a crack to peek through. The final breaking point came subtly, almost unnoticed. I sent a message, asking if there was anything I could do to help. It was a simple, caring question, but it landed wrong. Her reply was cold, accusatory. You don't care. You're just thinking about yourself. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I stared at the screen, stunned. How could she see it that way? I tried to explain once more, the frustration bubbling just beneath the surface, the anxiety, the fear of losing her trust. I typed, deleted, retyped, searching for the perfect words that might bridge the chasm. And still, the response was the same. Accusatory, distant, final. Then came the silence. Hours turned into a day. Days turned into a week. And then she blocked me. Every platform, every contact, gone, vanished. I sat there, staring at my phone, my thoughts spiraling. All I had wanted was to help, to be there, to show that I cared. And in that moment, I realized that good intentions alone were not enough. Misunderstanding, fear, mistrust, they had created a barrier I could not cross, a chasm I could not fill with words. I was left with questions, regrets, and a gnawing sense of helplessness. And yet, in the quiet, I reflected. I asked myself what I could have done differently. Was there a way to convey concern without it being misread? Was there a way to maintain connection without pressure? These questions had no immediate answers. All I knew was the weight of misunderstanding, the fragility of trust, and the pain of a love that, despite my intentions, had slipped through my fingers. Days passed after the initial message, and the uncertainty was unbearable. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart would leap, only to sink when it wasn't her. The silence was loud, oppressive, filling the spaces of my apartment, my mind, my chest. I replayed her words in my head. Something happened. Can we talk? Simple words, yet they carried a weight that neither of us fully understood. I remembered the first night vividly. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, the screen glowing in the darkness. I typed, deleted, retyped messages over and over. Are you okay? Do you need anything? Each variation felt wrong. Would it seem intrusive? Would she think I was angry? Each second I waited for her reply felt like an eternity. When she finally responded, the details were sparse, almost cryptic. It's complicated. I'll explain later. That later lingered over me like a storm cloud. Later never felt like it would come, and every unanswered follow-up text added bricks to a wall I couldn't climb. My concern twisted into anxiety. I tried to imagine what complicated meant. Was she hurt physically? Emotionally? Was someone else involved? The unknown made my mind spin. I spent the next few days pacing, replaying past interactions, looking for patterns, anything that could give me insight. My apartment became a silent prison, filled with questions I had no answers for. I wanted to reach her, but each attempt felt like stepping on a wire stretched thin over a chasm. One wrong word, one wrong tone, and the fragile connection we had could snap entirely. And then the miscommunication began in earnest. I asked gently, "Can you tell me what happened? I just want to help." Her reply was brief, almost cold. "I don't want to talk about it right now." I froze. I had only wanted to help. That was all. I wasn't angry. I wasn't upset. Yet somehow my intentions were invisible. And in that invisibility, the first seeds of misunderstanding began to take root. The next week was a blur of short, tense exchanges. She would respond with one-word messages, leaving me grasping for context. I would overanalyze every comma, every period, every pause. I wanted to know how she was, what she was feeling, what she needed. But it seemed as if every effort I made only pushed her further away. I started to question myself. Was I too much? Too worried? Too controlling? Or was this just the natural gap that grew between two people struggling to communicate? One night, after hours of no response, I sent a final message. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Please tell me what I can do to help. The minutes ticked by, then hours. My phone remained silent. My chest tightened. I felt the weight of helplessness settle on me, heavier than anything I had experienced in years. Every thought circled back to that moment. I only wanted to help. How did it turn into this? How did caring become a weapon in her eyes? The following days were a careful dance around each other, one misstep away from collapse. She shared fragments, cryptic sentences that hinted at something serious, yet never the full picture. It's bigger than you think. I can't talk now, she wrote. Every time I asked, hoping to understand and offer help, the walls went higher, the distance wider. My thoughts became a tangled maze. I imagined every possible scenario, some terrifying, some absurd. I questioned my own judgment, wondering if I had overlooked signs, ignored subtle cues, or misread her emotional state. Sleep became erratic. Every night I lay awake, imagining what she was enduring, feeling the weight of her pain as if it were my own. Each text I sent carried a careful calculation, too little concern she might feel abandoned. Too much she might see me as controlling or selfish. And yet, no matter what I did, my messages landed cold. Her words, brief and detached, were a mirror of my deepest fears, that I was incapable of bridging the gap, that my concern was a burden, not comfort. On one particularly restless evening, I tried a different approach. I typed, deleted, and retyped. I don't need explanations if you can't, but I want to be here for you. Anything, any way I can help. I hesitated, imagining how she might receive it. Seconds turned into minutes. Finally, her reply, "You don't get it. You only care about yourself." The words hit like a fist. Every ounce of patience I had accumulated over the past weeks crumbled. I felt disbelief, anger, confusion, and heartbreak all at once. I wanted to scream that it wasn't true, that all I had done was worry, care, try to help. Yet the screen remained between us, a cold, unmoving wall. The distance was no longer physical, it had become emotional, intangible, but impenetrable. Misunderstandings piled on top of one another, like bricks forming a wall I could never climb. Each fragment of information she offered hinted at pain, yet kept me out. Every attempt I made to understand or console her seemed twisted in her perception, and her replies grew shorter, colder, more evasive. I began to question myself constantly. Was I too intense, too eager to help, or had I done something unconsciously that shattered her trust? The paradox haunted me. The more I tried to connect, the further away she drifted. One night, after hours of silence, I received a single message: "Stop asking. You can't do anything. You don't understand." It was devastating. I had spent days trying to approach the situation gently, patiently, yet she saw my concern as intrusion, my care as selfishness. I sat on my bed, phone in hand, staring at those words, feeling the suffocating weight of helplessness. I wanted to reach out, to explain, to reassure her, but the truth was slippery, intangible. How could I convey that my anger, the tension she perceived, was never directed at her, but at the circumstances? That my frustration stemmed from my own inability to fix what had happened to her, not from disregard for her feelings. Every thought felt inadequate, every attempt doomed to misinterpretation. Then came the breaking point. I tried one last time to bridge the gap. I just want to help. Tell me what I can do. Anything. The reply was abrupt, cold, final. I don't need your help. You only think about yourself. Goodbye. In an instant, the fragile threads connecting us snapped. She blocked me, vanished from every channel, leaving me alone with questions that had no answers. I stared at my phone, the glow fading in the darkened room, and felt the hollow ache of misunderstanding. All my intentions, all my care, all my sleepless nights meant nothing in her eyes. I sat there, reflecting on how quickly things had fallen apart. One misunderstanding, compounded by fear, distance, and miscommunication, had escalated into the collapse of a relationship. I felt helpless, frustrated, heartbroken, but also aware that the story wasn't entirely her fault, nor mine. It was a confluence of emotions, timing, and perception, a tragedy born from human complexity. And yet, even in that solitude, I realized something crucial. Caring isn't always seen as care. Love isn't always recognized as love. Misunderstanding can turn the best intentions into weapons, and sometimes, no matter how hard you try, the bridge is already gone. After the final message, silence enveloped me. The weight of her disappearance was suffocating. I scrolled through old texts, rereading every interaction, analyzing every word, every punctuation mark, desperate for a clue, any sign of what went wrong. I tried to make sense of it. How had my concern, my care, become a weapon in her eyes? Every carefully chosen word, every late-night message of reassurance, every attempt to understand had been misread. My mind spun in circles, trying to reconstruct the timeline, the emotional shifts, the moments that could have been misinterpreted. The more I dwelled on it, the more I realized how fragile our connection had been. Miscommunication had built a wall between us, brick by brick, until there was no way to reach her. The helplessness gnawed at me like fire, leaving me restless, pacing my apartment, replaying scenarios, imagining what she was feeling, and wondering if there was any path back. One day, I finally got a hint. Mutual friend casually mentioned she was going through something even bigger than she had let on. My heart raced. Why hadn't she trusted me enough to tell me herself? Why did she see me as the enemy? The mixture of relief, anger, and heartbreak was almost unbearable. I tried to reach out again, carefully, cautiously. I heard from someone that things are worse than I realized. I want to help. Please tell me what I can do. The response was ice cold. I don't want you involved. Stay away. The words pierced through me. I felt rejected, powerless, and misunderstood all at once. Every good intention I had, every ounce of care, seemed to have been twisted into selfishness, into something threatening. That night, I sat alone, staring at the ceiling, reflecting on the paradox. The more I wanted to help, the further I pushed her away. I questioned everything, my timing, my approach, my understanding of her. The uncertainty gnawed at my mind. I could almost hear her voice accusing me of being self-centered, even as I argued with myself, insisting I only wanted to help. Weeks passed. Our lives ran parallel but never intersected. Every attempt to reach her ended with silence or cold rebuffs. I became obsessed with the what-ifs. What if I had waited? What if I had said nothing? What if I had approached differently? The possibilities haunted me endlessly. Every message I imagined sending, every word I rehearsed in my head, felt like it could either bridge the chasm or make it worse. The fear of causing more harm paralyzed me, leaving me frozen in indecision. And yet, the emptiness of her absence was heavier than the fear, urging me to try despite the risk. It was in those long nights of reflection that I began to understand a painful truth. Love alone does not guarantee understanding. Caring alone does not prevent hurt. Sometimes, even the most sincere intentions are powerless against the tide of fear, pride, and miscommunication. Then came the moment I will never forget. A single message arrived, short and unyielding. I can't trust you anymore. You don't understand. Goodbye. It was the final barrier. My chest tightened, and I felt an unbearable weight settle over me. All the nights of worry, all the attempts to help, all the silent prayers that she would confide in me, they meant nothing to her. In that moment, I realized that the story of us had shifted from care and concern to misunderstanding and heartbreak. One misread intention, one moment of fear, had irreversibly altered everything. And yet, even in the devastation, I reflected, perhaps there was a lesson in this. Misunderstandings could turn love into anguish. Silence could become a weapon. And sometimes, no matter how hard you try, the bridge between two hearts can vanish in an instant. Sitting alone, staring at the screen that once connected us, I understood the cruel truth. The person I wanted to save from pain could never see that my care was real. And that realization, bitter as it was, would stay with me forever. After her final message, the silence was absolute. No calls, no texts, no signs that she existed in my world anymore. The absence was deafening, a vacuum that consumed my thoughts, my energy, my nights. I replayed every interaction over and over, searching for the moment where everything had shifted. Was it a single word, a tone misunderstood, or was it a series of small cracks that grew into a chasm? I realized how fragile trust can be. One misread intention, one moment of fear, and years of connection can vanish. I thought I understood love. I thought care was enough. But now I was learning that love can be fragile, misunderstood, and even misused as an accusation. Weeks turned into months. I lived in the echo of our conversations, the ghosts of her words lingering in my mind. I questioned myself constantly. Could I have done something differently? Was there a way to bridge the gap without causing more harm? I tried reaching out one last time, not to reopen wounds, but to find closure, to offer understanding. I typed a message. I never meant to hurt you. I only wanted to help. I wish you peace and happiness. I never sent it. I realized that some bridges, no matter how badly you want to cross them, no longer exist. Sometimes closure comes from within, from acceptance, not from reconciliation. I began to reflect on the lessons hidden in the heartbreak. Misunderstandings are powerful. They can distort reality, twist intentions, and destroy trust. Communication is fragile. It requires patience, empathy, and timing. Caring alone is not always enough. But there was also clarity emerging from the pain. I understood my own limits, my own human flaws, and the ways I had contributed, however unintentionally, to the breakdown. I saw that relationships require not just love, but understanding, trust, and a willingness to navigate uncertainty together. And sometimes, even with all that, things can still fail. Sitting alone, reflecting on everything, I finally found a sense of peace. The story of us was over, but the lessons remained. I realized that good intentions can be misinterpreted, that love can be fragile, and that understanding is sometimes harder to give than affection. I could no longer control how she saw me, nor how she reacted. What I could control was my own reflection, my own growth, and my own capacity to learn from pain. And as I put down my phone, leaving the silence intact, I understood sometimes the greatest act of love is to let go, even when your heart still wants to hold on. This story, full of misunderstanding, heartbreak, and the clash between intention and perception, left me with a simple truth. Relationships are delicate, communication is essential, and sometimes the hardest lesson is learning that caring is not always enough.